All right, Larry, it's December coming up on year end. We've got 1 month of data to go, but before we get there, we got to talk about November. Um, I'm not sure about you, but I'm not noticing a hell of a lot of difference from the month prior.
No, I'd agree. I'd say right back to where we were last month, we're treading water. Market hasn't collapsed. Market hasn't taken off. I think part of that hasn't collapsed. Part is really tied to the fact that we continue to have decreases in the interest rate, and that's kept us buoyant. But it has not sparked the market to take off, and there's a lot more underlying issues here besides interest rates that are keeping buyers on the sidelines.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that we've now had four rate cuts. We've got another one coming up very shortly,
Yeah.
hopefully. But the last one was a half point followed by 3/4 points. So you're 1.25. That the half point got people's attention, but it really didn't move the needle too much in terms of any of the metrics we normally look at. Some communities had a little uptick in sales, but most were flat or down. And pricing was kind of the same. We didn't really see any major growth, if any. So all those buyers who've been sitting on the sidelines, kind of watching and waiting, thinking I need to see lower prices, but maybe were worried that as rates went down, prices would go up. That hasn't happened yet.
No, it hasn't. And my own experience over the last 30 days with my own listings is the buyers that I'm having approach me, they're looking for deals. They're not out there
Oh
willing to
yeah.
overpay for a house. They have selection to pick from. There's an abundance of inventory out there for them to look at, and they are looking for deals. So if you don't have a very unique, spectacular property that really stands out, that's a real turnkey project, that's a head turner at the same time, they are willing to come in and really look for a deal on something, and I'll call it a low ball, but they're looking for a deal. And if they don't get it, they're prepared to wait or move on.
It's a good point you make about, what you have to sell. If it's unique and special in some way, it's chances are it's going to go. Now, what price it goes for, to be determined. But anything where that's relatively homogeneous, and we see this a lot in newer subdivisions, condos, townhomes. There's not a hell of a lot of deviation between or variation from one unit to the next. So if there's an abundance of options, it's going to come down to price, and chances are it's at that point, if the seller wants to get a deal done and their motivation is to get it done, I would say that buyer who's going to try and lowball may have some success.
Yeah, no, and we've seen it. And I think the other part of that equation is what somebody considers their property as being, a standout property. I mean, we all have our own emotional attachment to our homes. We all have a perception about what we think, but you and I and every other realtor out there, we look at many homes and we know the difference between an updated modern home versus a home that was updated 10 years ago. And as much as the homeowner of that 10-year-old home thinks he's got a fantastically updated home, the reality, the fact is those renovation projects are happening far more frequently now. And even a 5-year-old home is a bit outdated in today's world versus even 10 or 15 years.
Well, those 10 or 15-year-old examples, they come up a lot.
Well,
How
there's a
often do you
lot of
hear somebody talking about the renovations they did recently, and then you ask when it was done? Oh, in 2008.
yeah.
Well,
And
that's not a new renovation. I mean, it looks great, but chances are someone else is going to want to make some changes, and they're not going to pay a premium for it as if it was just done last week.
And I think that kind of plays back into that understanding where the market is that we're in today. A lot of people are stuck in, 2020, 21, 22, when the market was on fire and we were seeing those really high prices. Some people are still living there, and not just in the sense of the price, but also in the fact that they're forgetting that how many years have passed since they've done those upgrades. Your house is
Yeah.
not, as new or upgraded as you think it was. And that's having an impact because sellers have a very different eye than a buyer does.
Well, especially when you've got buyers who have options. Their
Absolutely.
their viewpoint is going to be, if I don't get it, no big deal. We'll go on to the next one.
That's exactly what's happening. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of inventory in every single neighborhood right now. And I don't even think it's comparable. Like there is right now, but I think the spring market coming, everybody in the world out there is telling us that the spring market's going to take off. Korea's saying that we're going to have a boom in the spring. You know, all the media is telling us we're going to have a boom in the spring. But I think what's going to happen in the spring is we're going to have a run on inventory. We're going to see an explosion of inventory. And I don't think the buyers are going to react as fast as the sellers are going to get on the market. So we're going to
And
go from having,
I would
sorry,
agree with that. You know, the reality is, just as we have buyers kind of waiting for when they think the opportune time is, sellers do the same thing.
yeah,
And so when a seller hears that maybe the spring market's going to be better, are they going to list in December? No, they're going to wait till March.
exactly.
So if everybody kind of does the same thing, that's a lot more inventory, and then you really got to hope that the buyers come back at a similar pace. And I don't know that that's going to be the case.
I tend to agree. I mean, we've been on these Zoom calls here that we do every month, and the messaging has been that, get ready for the spring market. That's if you're not ready to sell now or buy now, at least be ready when the market comes. There's a lot of people doing that,
Yeah.
and that's going to create a flood of inventory. So it's a good thing for buyers. They'll have more options to choose from. I think it's good for sellers because they'll be on the market when those buyers become active, but I don't think it's going to help people from a perspective of driving their price back up.
Well, that's just it. If you think that's going to help you get 10 or 15 or 20 points more, that's probably the wrong motivation because it doesn't mean you won't get more than you will today, but I don't think it's going to be wildly more. A few points maybe, I don't know. But if it's probably more about, getting the market moving again, things
Yeah.
happening again, than it is about the prices. And that might not be what some sellers want to hear, but I got to think that there's some sellers out there today who've been sitting on the market for 3, 4, 5 months.
6 months, eight
Just the
months.
idea of getting things moving again might sound pretty attractive.
Yeah. And I think those people that are getting ready for the spring market to go on the market, I think the key to that is really doing a circle back on your property and trying to find anything else there that may be a deficiency right now that's going to stand out to a buyer in a negative way. So if you've got,
Mhm.
if you've spent money on your renovations over the last 5 or 10 years and you've done a good portion of your house, but maybe a bathroom is still original, that may be something that could hurt you when they're looking at 5 different homes, right? Because a
Oh,
bathroom could
yeah.
potentially be a $10,000 to $20,000 renovation. And if a buyer's looking at a house and you're both priced about the same, but that one's got an upgraded bathroom and you don't, that could be enough to tip the scale to the other seller's advantage. So you want to make sure anything that you're looking at right now, you got to realize it's still going to be a competitive market when you do get on the market. So you need to make sure you eliminate as many challenges as possible.
Well, absolutely, because a lot of those buyers are not going to be rolling that into their mortgage. That's an extra 10, 20 grand they got to spend after they close.
Yes, exactly.
And that's expensive. And if affordability is any kind of concern right now, then chances are those, what in the big picture might not seem like a big deal or shouldn't seem like a big deal will be.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the 20 grand after closing to do a few things, then the one that looks a little better today is going to get a lot more attention.
So, I mean, I want to be cautiously optimistic, I think is the way I look at 2025. There are a lot of other factors beyond the price of houses and interest rates. I mean, we have a new administration coming in January in the States, and they're making some big, bold challenges to Canada that could have a profound impact on our economy, which, housing's at the top of the list of our economy
Yeah.
when things shift here. So there are a lot of anomalies that we're going to be challenged with in 2025 that are going to have an impact on housing. Hopefully they play out to our advantage or to our favor at least, and we don't go backwards. But I think there's a lot of things out there to certainly make it a cautious optimism as opposed to a bold optimism.
Yeah, I think so. So on that note, I think we talked a bit about what we're both expecting in the spring. Do you have any broader projections for let's say all of 2025? I know it's you don't have a crystal ball, I don't either, but the last year and really you can go back pat beyond 2024 going backwards. Good chunk of 23 was pretty quiet as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's been a while since we've seen a really busy market. I do think that we'll have some more activity coming. I think 2025 will bring more activity, especially as rates continue to go downward. But I'm not expecting any wild changes price wise. There are headlines, and we've talked about that. There's economists out there Bank of Canada, all these different places, CMHC, all the major real estate brokerages and firms have their projections. This is the time of year they start putting them out, right?
Yep.
And many of them are saying that, there's going to be growth, there's going to be growth. I'm a little more tempered on that. I'm not so sure it'll be as um, if there is growth, I mean, I'd be shocked if it was double digit, and put it that way.
Well, I look at it from an economics perspective. You touched on a few things there, and the big thing for me is the economy of scale, affordability. Food is still up in price, gas is still
Mhm.
high, overall cost of living is higher. None of those things seem to be coming down. People look at inflation and say it's back to here, and I think they forget that inflation is the number based on where it was a year ago. So 2 years ago, when we were at 8% inflation, we're not down to 2% below. We're 2% higher than that 8%, right? The
Mhm.
number keeps inching up. It just slows how fast it grows.
Right.
Cost of living has not come down for a lot of people, and income has not kept up with that inflationary rate over the last 3 years. So I think affordability is going to come into play in a lot of this. I don't think we're going to see a run in prices at all. I think we're going to see um, modest, a modest growth. I think. I don't think we'll see a decline in prices, but I think it'll be very subdued. I think activity will be driven more about people that come to the realization that maybe we've already hit the bottom, because you don't know you hit the bottom until you start going back up.
Yeah.
But if we don't go back up and we stay, we kind of plateaued, I think you're going to get some people that say, okay, we've waited long enough. We're ready to make the move. Like let's make that move now. And from a seller perspective, I think there's going to be some people that are going to look at it and say, we've waited 2 or 3 years. We want to get on with our life. We want to downsize. It's not just about getting more money in our sale. If we're downsizing, we're lowering our overall carrying costs on our home, lower property taxes, lower utilities. And you're going to take equity out of your home if you're downsizing.
Well,
They've
they're
put
also
that on
achieving other
hold.
goals too. If you're downsizing, there's reason, maybe there's mobility issues, whatever,
It could be anything.
that's one,
I
just one
think those
example,
those
but
sales kind of happen anyways. I think
yeah.
the people that have been more financially driven, I think they're going to come to a point where they're going to say, you know what, enough is enough. Let's just like, come on, honey, let's pack up the van and let's hit the road. We got to move down the road to that other house and stop waiting for the market to catch back up. At some point in time, you got to get on with your life, and I think some people will get to that point in 2025, because I don't think 25 is going to see a boom. I think it'll
No,
be, in all honesty, if we can be 5% higher than where we were in 23, 24, I'll call that a win.
oh, I agree. And that's kind of what I was getting at. If it's going to be double digits, I'd be shocked. I don't think we'll be there. I think what we're seeing probably for the last 18 months, and I think it's going to carry into 2025, is to some extent a new normal. I mean,
Yeah,
there's people out there, especially some younger folks who all they know is a market is real estate goes up, 10 points a year or more.
yeah.
That's traditionally that's not how it works. It did for a little bit there, but that those days are over. I don't think we're going to see a return to that in 2025.
Well,
And
I think
I
the
hope
Bank
we
of
don't
Canada will
though.
continue to lower interest rates, because I think we'll see more pressure on the economy, and they want to stave off any kind of recessionary position. So I think we'll continue to see interest rates decline, but I don't think we're going to see them go below 3%. I don't think
No,
that's going to happen.
I don't think it. I mean, well, we've seen so far. You had a half point cut. We talked about this already. A half point cut, and it didn't really move the needle on all the
On
metrics we
sales.
typically look at. So if you were worried that the price was going to go up because the rates went down, so far that isn't happening.
Yeah.
And
So I think that's why I think people are going to look at it and say, okay, we've held out long enough. This could be the bottom. It doesn't look like it's going to go any lower. So let's get back, let's get into the market. And at the same time, I think you're going to see sellers that are going to say, you know what, we've waited and waited and waited and it hasn't turned, and the economy hasn't improved at all. So you know what, let's move forward. And at some point, you're going to get a balance that's going to happen there, and that will trigger some activity. Again, will
I'm
it
hoping
trigger a
that'll
boom?
happen sooner than later, frankly. And I'd like to think that'll start to happen. People's memories to 21 and 22 seem to be, we talked about this. A lot of people still seem to be living in that time frame and
Yeah.
have expectations that align with price points that we saw at that time, and we're just not there.
No, we're not. And
If
that's,
you're asking what your neighbor got in 2021, I got bad news. It's not going to happen.
yeah, they won the lottery. So, but those days
Oh,
are gone. So I think kind of that's what I'm expecting for the new year. My position on it all is I'm going to continue to work with my clients on what their goals are, and we're going to be realistic about it. And again, if you're buying and selling in the same market, that should temper a lot of the offsetting that you're going to be dealing with. If you're
Especially if they're
downsizing,
upsizing.
yeah. If you're upsizing, it's a win. I think anybody upsizing, this is the market you should be out shopping.
Yeah.
But if you're downsizing, obviously you got to be a little more cautious of what you're doing. You got to run your numbers a little tighter. But I think if you're doing it and you're doing it in the same window of time, it's not going to be any different than if the market picks up because it's going to pick up everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So
All right. Well, I think you're heading off on vacation shortly.
I will be gone for a little bit. Yes. So I'll be away and I guess we got the Christmas holiday
Enjoy
coming
the
up. So this will be
Christmas
our last
season,
post
and
of the year. But it's been an
uh,
interesting one. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what 2025 brings.
I am too, and I'm looking forward to our 2024 recap in January.
Yeah,
So,
we've got, it'll be interesting to look back and see what the year had for us.
until then, hopefully the next couple weeks are productive, and otherwise enjoy your holidays and your vacation.
All right. And happy holidays to you and everybody out there. All the best.
Thanks. See ya.